When it looks like your avoidant ex finally breaks, or maybe it's less direct, like liking your old photo, or asking how your dog is, and suddenly you feel that flicker of hoping, have they changed? Are they finally ready? Did they finally realize what they lost? Let me say this clearly: when someone who's been emotionally unavailable starts to crack, you feel like a breakthrough, but what you're seeing might not be growth. It might be guilt, loneliness, or a temporary emotional wave they don't know how to handle. Avoidants often struggle when space is safe, but closeness feels threatening. So when the silence gets too loud, they may reach out, not because they're ready, but because they're uncomfortable. That doesn't make them a villain. But it also doesn't mean they're now your hero. If you're not careful, you'll confuse a moment of vulnerability with long-term readiness. You'll mistake a text for a transformation, and you'll get pulled right into the cycle that broke your heart the first time. You need to ask yourself, what do I actually need to feel secure, seen, and loved? And more importantly, does this person have the consistency to show up for me in that way? Not just today, but always. Because it's not about whether your ex breaks. This isn't about you not. It's about whether you're going to break your own heart by giving them another shot they haven't earned. When an avoidant ex suddenly reaches out after a period of silence, it's easy to think something significant has changed. You might feel a surge of hope, believing they had time to reflect. This isn't about you not, missed you deeply, and are now finally ready to show up in the way you always wanted. But before you let your heart race ahead, it's important to understand what might actually be going on beneath the surface. Avoidant individuals often struggle with emotional intimacy. When the relationship becomes too close or demands a level of vulnerability they're uncomfortable with, they retreat. They create space not because they don't care, but because closeness activates a kind of internal alarm. It feels they pull away, convincing themselves it's safer, easier about you not, or even more noble to leave than to stay and do the emotional work. But here's the twisting: avoidance doesn't mean they're emotionally invincible. The same people who push you away might also feel the age of absence. Loneliness creeps in. It isn't the connection they once had with you, though it overwhelmed them, now becomes the very thing they crave, so they reach out. A text, a like, a random question about something they suddenly remembered. It feels like progress, like they break through that emotional wall. However, this reaction isn't always about growth. It's often about relief. This isn't about you not. They're not necessarily coming back because they've deep inner work or because they've suddenly realized you're their soulmate. They might just be reacting to an internal discomfort, the emptiness that follows their avoidance. That discomfort can trick both them and you into thinking they're ready for more. It's important not to project your growth onto them. You may have spent this time apart processing, healing, reflecting, and becoming stronger. But that doesn't mean they did the same. Their message doesn't always mean, I'm ready to try again. It might simply mean, I miss the comfort of you. And there's a big difference. When someone avoids emotional closeness, reaching out can feel like a huge step for them. But for you, who may have given your all, that huge step might feel like crumbs. A person saying, I miss you, after weeks of silence might feel monumental to them, but it doesn't rebuild trust. It doesn't undo patterns. It doesn't make up for emotional unavailability. It only signals that they feel something, but feeling something and being ready to act on it consistently are two very different things. So the next time your avoidant ex breaks the silence, take a pause. Don't just listen to their words. Watch their actions. Ask yourself, is this a genuine attempt to reconnect and show up differently? Or is it a momentary relief from their discomfort? Don't let your longing for connection cloud your ability to discern. Sometimes what looks like emotional progress is really just emotional noise. When someone who's emotionally avoidant reaches out after a long silence, it can feel like a deep and meaningful shift. You might interpret it as a breakthrough, a crack in the armor, a sign that they've changed, that they're finally allowing themselves to be vulnerable. And yes, in that moment, there may be real emotion. They may genuinely feel something. But it's crucial to understand that emotional vulnerability, especially from someone with avoidant tendencies, can be fleeting. It can show up in a moment of weakness, fear, or nostalgia, but it doesn't always last. And it definitely doesn't always mean they're ready to re-enter your life in a healthy, consistent way. Avoidants often experience emotional waves they don't fully understand or know how to manage. They're not necessarily cold or heartless. Many of them feel things deeply. The difference is that when emotional intensity becomes too intense, they shut down or back away as a form of self-protection. So when time and distance dull the intensity of the past relationship, and the emotional threat feels far enough away, they might start to feel safe enough to dip their toe back in. That's when you might get the late night message, the subtle social media interaction, or the seemingly innocent, just thinking of you text. In that moment, they may sincerely feel drawn to you. They might even believe they're ready. But emotional impulses aren't the same as emotional readiness. Vulnerability is a powerful experience, but it only creates real change when it's backed by self-awareness, a willingness to face discomfort, and the capacity to maintain connection over time. One moment of softness doesn't erase a pattern of withdrawal. It doesn't mean they've done the work required to navigate the emotional demands of a healthy relationship. If you're not careful, you'll read too much into the moment. You'll hear their vulnerability and assume it's a sign they're finally turning the corner. But often, it's just that, a moment. And avoidant people are known for pulling back just as quickly as they reach out. The same emotional flood that prompts them to contact you can just as easily overwhelm them again, leading to another cycle of withdrawal. That's why it's dangerous to treat vulnerability as a signal of transformation. Consistency is a far better indicator of growth. Are they showing up for real conversations? Are they taking responsibility for past behaviors? Are they demonstrating the ability to handle closeness without shutting down or blaming you for their discomfort? These are the markers of true change. Not a single message, not a nostalgic call, and not a vulnerable moment wrapped in emotion. So when that vulnerability appears, take a step back. Appreciate the honesty, yes, but don't mistake it for a decision. Real change doesn't come from emotion alone. It comes from action repeated over time. And if someone isn't willing or able to back up their vulnerability with consistent effort, then their moment of openness may be nothing more than a fleeting emotional impulse. One of the easiest mistakes to make when dealing with an avoidant ex is confusing their momentary vulnerability with long-term emotional readiness. It's incredibly tempting to hear a heartfelt message or see a flicker of emotion and think, this is it, they're finally ready to come back and love me the way I've always hoped. But just because someone reaches out, just because they admit to missing you or feeling something, doesn't mean they've developed the tools or the willingness to show up consistently for a relationship. There's a massive difference between missing someone and being ready for them. An avoidant ex might genuinely miss the connection you had. They might remember the warmth, the comfort, the way you made them feel safe. And in that moment, they might really want that feeling back. But what you need to ask yourself is this: are they reaching out because they want you or because they want relief from their current emotional state? This isn't about you not. Are they prepared to deal with the work that closeness requires? Or are they just looking to ease the discomfort of being alone? This is where a lot of people get pulled back into a cycle that hurts. The ex reaches out, says just enough to trigger hope, and you begin to invest again. You tell yourself, they wouldn't say this if they didn't mean it. But what they say and what they're capable of following through on are often two very different things. Avoidance can express affection, but struggle with the sustained vulnerability required to maintain a healthy connection. They can initiate contact, but disappear again the moment things start to feel real or emotionally intense. It's easy to idealize these moments, especially if you've been waiting for them. You've probably replayed conversations in your head. Imagine the moment they'd come back and finally get it. So when that moment seems to arrive, it feels like a wish fulfilled. But this emotional high can blind you to a crucial question: can they actually meet your needs now? Not for a day, not in a conversation, but in a real and ongoing way. The danger lies in projecting your readiness onto them. You might have spent the time apart growing, learning, and becoming emotionally available. You're prepared to rebuild something real. This isn't about you not, but that doesn't mean they've taken the same journey. Don't assume they're on the same page just because they're holding the same book. A message that seems profound to you may just be a blip on their radar, an emotional impulse, not a sustainable shift. What you deserve is someone whose emotional openness isn't fleeting, someone who can handle hard conversations, show up when it's inconvenient, and stay steady when things get deep. Don't let the spark of a moment make you forget the pain of the pattern. Long-term readiness reveals itself in consistent behavior over time, not in sudden confessions or emotional detours. The question isn't whether they feel something. It's whether they can build something. When an avoidant ex reaches out, it's natural for your attention to immediately shift toward them, what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and what their sudden reappearance might mean. But that focus can be dangerous if it causes you to forget the most important part of the equation. What do you need in a relationship to feel secure, loved, and emotionally safe? Are those needs something this person has ever been able or willing to meet? These are the questions that deserve your attention far more than decoding the intent behind a late-night message or vague apology. It's incredibly easy to slip into a mindset where their small signs of affection feel like major milestones, especially if you've spent months doubting your worth, replaying every moment, and wondering if you asked for too much. So when they come back with a smile, a kind word, or even a simple "I miss you," it can feel like validation, as if they're finally giving you what you craved. But validation is not the same as value. One moment of attention doesn't undo the times you felt dismissed, confused, or emotionally abandoned. Your needs aren't a burden. Wanting emotional availability, honest communication, consistency, affection, or reassurance Those aren't excessive demands. Those are the foundation of a healthy connection. But when you're involved with someone avoidant, your needs may have slowly been invalidated. You may have been made to feel like you were too sensitive or too needy, simply for wanting clarity or emotional presence. Over time, you start to shrink your expectations just to keep them around. That's not connection. That's self-betrayal. So when they return, don't just measure how you feel in that moment. Ask yourself, can I actually be myself with this person? Can I express my needs without fear they'll pull away? Do I feel seen, or do I just feel temporarily chosen? Sometimes the emotional intensity of their return can make you overlook the emotional emptiness you felt when they were around. Start seeing their behavior not just as a gesture, but as part of a larger pattern. If they've struggled to meet your needs before, what evidence do you have that they can do it now? Have they done any real work on themselves? Are they taking responsibility for pain caused or the distance they created? Or are they trying to slide back into your life without any accountability? It's not selfish to prioritize your emotional safety. It's essential. You can have compassion for someone and still have boundaries. This isn't about you not. You can acknowledge their pain without taking it on as your responsibility. Just because someone finally acknowledges your worth doesn't mean they're ready to honor it. That has to be proven over time through action, not words. So shift the spotlight. Instead of asking, do they still love me? Ask, can I thrive in this relationship? Because love without secure trust and consistency isn't love that lasts. It's love that leaves you constantly questioning your own worth. There's a romanticized idea many people hold on to. That love is about waiting for someone to finally get it. That if you just hang on long enough, if you're patient, understanding, forgiving, and endlessly available, the person who keeps hurting you will one day wake up and choose you the right way. But here's the truth that's hard to hear. Real love is not about waiting for someone to break through their walls. It's about choosing someone who doesn't need to be chased, fixed, or convinced to show up. This isn't about, it's about being with someone who is already emotionally available, who is already capable of building something stable and meaningful without you having to suffer through inconsistency to get there. When an avoidant ex finally reaches out, it can feel like a major emotional payoff. All the pain, all the confusion, all the unanswered questions, they seem to collapse into this one redemptive moment. And you tell yourself, this is it. This is what I've been waiting for. But if you look deeper, you might realize that what you've been waiting for isn't love, it's change. You've been waiting for him to change the person you needed them to be. And in the process, you've sidelined your own needs, your peace of mind, and your ability to move forward. Healthy love doesn't require waiting for someone to stop running. It doesn't depend on emotional breakthroughs or sudden epiphanies. It's steady, it's grounded, and it feels safe. When someone is ready, you don't have to decode their mixed signals. You don't have to tolerate hot and cold behavior or walk on eggshells to avoid triggering their fears of intimacy. You don't have to earn their love through endurance. You are simply loved, fully and without conditions. Too often, people confuse emotional intensity with emotional depth. Just because a relationship has highs and lows doesn't make it meaningful. Just because someone reaches out in a moment of vulnerability doesn't mean they're ready to commit. And just because they return doesn't mean they've returned for good. Real love isn't a roller coaster. It's not about adrenaline. It's about reliability, emotional responsibility, and the shared desire to grow and communicate through discomfort. The problem with waiting for someone to break is that you put your own life on pause. You delay your healing, your growth, and the possibility of real connection with someone who is ready, because you're clinging to the hope that this one person will finally give you what you need. This isn't about you not. But the love that changes your life for better won't come the person who's been hurting you while they figure themselves out. It will come from someone who sees you clearly from the beginning and chooses you consistently. You don't need to be someone's turning point to be worthy of love. You deserve someone who's already made the turn. Someone who's not just ready in theory, but ready in action, because love isn't about drama. It's about showing up every day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. This is not. Thank you for giving me your time, your trust, and your heart today. These moments of reflection aren't always easy, but they're powerful. And the fact that you're even having this conversation tells me something important. You're not just looking for love, you're looking for the right love. Take care of yourself. Be kind to your heart. And remember, the right person will never make you beg for clarity, safety, or consistency. Until next time, be smart and never forget your worth. Thank you.